I arrived early at the hotel where my wife's company was hosting a party. She had told me to come later, but I wanted to surprise her. The event was held in a ballroom near the Chicago riverfront. When I walked in, people were talking, drinking, and taking photos. I looked around and saw my wife, Lena, standing near her boss, Colin Rooker. They were speaking quietly. I watched them for a moment. Then I saw her lean in and kiss him. It was not an accident. I left the room immediately. I drove home without stopping. The drive took about 40 minutes. I do not remember most of it. When I reached our condo, I sat in the living room for a while. I looked at our wedding picture on the wall. After some time, I heard her key in the door. She came in around midnight. She was surprised to see me awake. She asked why I was sitting in the dark. I told her I had been at the hotel. I told her I saw what happened. She said it was not what I thought. I told her not to lie. Then I picked up my bag and left the apartment. I drove to the lake and parked near the water. I stayed there until morning. I thought about what I had seen and what it meant. I decided to find out the truth before taking any action. The next day, I sent her a short message. I told her not to contact me until I said so. Then I blocked her number. I went to work and acted as if nothing had happened. In my mind, I started making a plan to confirm everything. I started noticing inconsistencies in Lena's daily routine. She left home earlier than usual and returned later. She said her workload had increased because of new projects. I checked her social media accounts and saw several new photos from work events that I didn't know about. In one of them, Colin was standing next to her. His hand was on her shoulder. When I asked about the photo, she said it was a casual office picture. I didn't argue, but I made a note of it. I began reviewing her credit card statements. There were multiple restaurant charges that didn't match our usual spending pattern. She had also withdrawn cash several times during office hours. I compared the dates with her claimed meeting days. Some of them overlapped. I printed the records and stored them in a folder. At work, I tried to concentrate, but every break I found myself checking for more details. My focus shifted completely from my job to monitoring her behavior. One night, I noticed she had received a text while she was in the shower. The notification showed only a first initial, C. The message preview read, "Same place tomorrow?" When she came out, I asked her directly if she was meeting anyone from work the next day. She said she had a team lunch scheduled. I said nothing further. After she went to bed, I backed up her phone to my laptop. I didn't open the files yet, but I had them stored in case I needed proof. Over the next week, she began locking her phone with a new passcode. She also started keeping her laptop closed when I entered the room. I noticed her becoming overly polite in conversation. Her tone had changed, less casual, more cautious. I avoided confrontation because I wanted more evidence. During that time, I reached out to my old friend Marissa, who worked in cybersecurity. I told her I needed help retrieving deleted messages and verifying file timestamps. She agreed to meet that weekend. By Friday, I noticed a work email sent from Lena's account while she was supposedly at lunch. The document attached to it was one of my previous project drafts from a year ago. It had my name removed and her initials added. I realized she had used my material at her company. I printed the email from the shared home printer log. When she came home that evening, she didn't mention her day, and I didn't ask. I acted normal. But I now had both a personal and professional reason to confirm what she was hiding. Saturday afternoon, Marissa came over with her equipment. I handed her the phone backup and asked her to check for deleted correspondence. She found a folder of chat logs with timestamps matching Lena's office hours. The content confirmed ongoing contact with Colin outside of work. The messages discussed client proposals and private dinners. I read through a few and stopped. I didn't react. I saved the data and encrypted it. Marissa suggested I prepare for legal consultation. I told her I just needed to know everything before deciding what to do. By Sunday, I had compiled all records into a single folder: financial statements, message logs, and the printed email. I labeled it Evidence 1. I placed it inside my briefcase. I didn't feel angry or sad. I focused only on building a complete picture. The goal was clarity, not revenge. I met Marissa again on Monday after work. We agreed to collect verifiable proof instead of assumptions. She brought a small hard drive and software tools for data recovery. We started by examining the metadata of the files from Lena's laptop. The documents had timestamps showing edits during late-night hours when she claimed to be asleep. Some of them matched the company's internal submission deadlines. That confirmed she had access to confidential material that did not belong to her. Marissa suggested extracting network logs from our home router to identify connected devices. The list included Colin's company-issued laptop on 3 separate nights. That meant he had visited our home when I was away. I recorded all these findings in a notebook. The goal was to create a clear sequence of events. Marissa advised me to keep everything factual and avoid speculation. We decided to monitor further communication between them for 1 week. She installed a passive tracking system that logged external contacts without revealing content. I didn't read the messages. I only wanted the pattern. Each day, there were consistent connections between Lena's device and Colin's during lunch breaks and after midnight. I documented the dates and times. At work, I acted normal. I completed my tasks, attended meetings, and avoided unnecessary interaction. I didn't want anyone to know what I was doing. I kept a flash drive with encrypted copies of all collected material. At night, I organized the files and labeled them by type: communication logs, documents, financial transactions, and photographs. I saved 1 copy on a cloud drive under a different name. I also started reviewing the company's public records. I discovered that Colin's department had recently won a contract based on a proposal similar to one I had written last year. That confirmed my suspicion that they had used my work. Midweek, I visited a lawyer specializing in workplace ethics and intellectual property. I explained that some of my drafts had been used without my consent. I didn't mention the personal relationship aspect. The lawyer said it was possible to prove ownership through file history and metadata. He advised me to gather the original drafts and keep all evidence confidential until I was ready to act. I followed his instructions exactly. I printed dated copies of my old work and placed them in a sealed envelope. By Thursday, Marissa had traced one of the hidden folders on Lena's laptop. It contained photos from company events and private dinners with Colin. Most of them were taken during business trips. The photos were stored under a generic name: Reports. She made digital copies for me and deleted her access afterward to avoid detection. I reviewed a few pictures, confirmed what I already knew, and closed the file. My focus remained on the professional side. Personal emotions were not relevant to the next step. On Friday evening, I returned home earlier than usual. Lena wasn't there. I checked her location through a shared app we had both forgotten to disable. She was at a restaurant near her office. I drove there and parked across the street. I waited 30 minutes and saw her walk out with Colin. They stood outside talking. She handed him a folder before they went separate ways. I took a photo of that moment for documentation. Afterward, I went home and added it to the file set. At the end of the week, I had a complete record: message metadata, financial activity, network logs, and photographic evidence. Marissa confirmed that all digital data was verifiable and time-stamped. I thanked her for her help and told her I would handle the next part alone. I spent Saturday reviewing every file, numbering them in order, and preparing a summary sheet. It contained dates, actions, and corresponding proof. The plan was simple. I would present the evidence when the right opportunity came. Until then, I would stay quiet and continue observing. 2 weeks later, the situation changed suddenly. Lena's company published a press release announcing a major client acquisition. The project outline and strategy summary were identical to a proposal I had written a year ago. My name was not mentioned anywhere. The credit was given to Lena and Colin as co-leads. I downloaded the press release and attached it to my evidence folder. It confirmed that my work had been used without acknowledgement. That same day, I received an internal email from my own employer asking about possible data overlap between our departments. Someone had filed a compliance inquiry naming me as a contributor to Lena's company project. It meant they were trying to make me responsible for the leak. I contacted Marissa and showed her the email. She verified that Lena's company server had logged my old drafts through her user credentials, not mine. That was enough to prove the files had been transferred without my authorization. We prepared a report showing every access instance. I sent a copy to my lawyer, who told me to remain silent and gather one more piece of evidence linking the account directly to Colin. The next morning, I went to Lena's office building pretending to drop off a document she had forgotten. At the reception desk, I saw a display showing employees who had received internal awards. A photo of Lena and Colin accepting recognition for the same project was featured. The caption read, "Innovative Leadership in Client Solutions." I took a picture of the board and left. That evening, Lena came home later than usual. She looked calm, unaware that I knew everything. I told her there had been a complaint against me involving her company's contract. She paused, asked what kind of complaint, and then said she didn't know anything about it. I told her the documents had my original data structure and that her login ID appeared on the transfer logs. She didn't respond for several seconds. Then she said she would check with Colin. I told her that would not be necessary. I already had confirmation from the system logs. She walked away without another word. The next day, my lawyer contacted me with new information. Lena's company had initiated an internal review after receiving an anonymous report. Someone had leaked internal correspondence linking Colin and Lena to the document transfer. I didn't send the report, but I knew it came from Marissa. The review quickly spread inside their office, and by afternoon, the department chat groups were discussing possible misconduct. I kept my distance and observed quietly. Within 2 days, the firm suspended Colin for investigation. Lena was placed on temporary leave. The story was starting to reach business media outlets. When Lena finally called me, her tone was neutral. She said she needed to meet and explain her side. I agreed. We met at a coffee shop near our apartment. She admitted that Colin had used my draft to impress a potential client and promised her credit in exchange. She said she hadn't realized the extent of the risk until it became public. I asked if their relationship had been only professional. She said no. I didn't ask for details. I told her I already had everything I needed. She asked what I planned to do next. I said, "Nothing for now." She looked at me for a few seconds and left. By the end of the week, their firm issued a formal statement acknowledging data misuse and announcing disciplinary measures. The client contract was suspended pending review. The company's public image suffered immediate damage. I stayed silent throughout. I didn't reach out to Lena again. She moved out of the apartment 2 days later. I received a letter from her lawyer asking for separation arrangements. I agreed without negotiation. My focus remained on restoring my professional standing. I met with my company's compliance team and presented full documentation proving that the material had been taken without my consent. They closed the inquiry and cleared my name. I received a written apology from my employer. The entire process took less than a week once the evidence was submitted. At that point, Lena and Colin's names were already trending in local business news. The consequences had arrived without me needing to do anything further. After the investigation ended, I decided to organize everything for a final report. I had no contact with Lena after she moved out. My goal was not emotional satisfaction, but a complete resolution. I reviewed every file once more to ensure accuracy. Marissa confirmed that all digital evidence had permanent timestamps. My lawyer advised me that the case could be used as a reference for future corporate integrity audits. I agreed to let him handle the documentation anonymously. During the next week, I focused on my own work. My department assigned me a new client proposal that required the same data models Lena and Colin had copied. I updated the framework, improved the layout, and submitted it under my own name. The senior manager approved it within 2 days. It was sent to an industry publication as an example of efficient data forecasting. That gave me a legitimate opportunity to reestablish my reputation. My intention was to make their misconduct irrelevant by producing something better and verifiable. At the same time, Marissa discovered that Colin's company was preparing a public seminar on ethics and leadership. It was scheduled for the following month. Lena's name was still on the event list as a speaker. We discussed the possibility of releasing the proof at that time. The objective was not revenge for personal reasons, but correction of the public record. I wanted the truth to appear in front of the same audience that had praised them. Marissa said she could prepare a data package with all verified logs and submission records. We planned to send it to selected journalists 1 hour before the seminar started. I spent the next 2 weeks gathering supporting material. I requested copies of my old email exchanges from the year before. The company's IT team provided them under a standard data access policy. I placed the emails, drafts, and time logs into a single encrypted folder. I reviewed every line to confirm that nothing was altered or exaggerated. The final package was clear. My documents had been accessed, renamed, and submitted by Lena and Colin. I instructed Marissa to prepare an automatic release to media outlets through an anonymous channel. The timing would coincide with the start of their seminar. Meanwhile, I received another message from Lena. She asked if we could meet for closure. I declined. She sent a longer email saying she regretted everything and wanted to explain. I did not reply. I had no further questions. I deleted the message after saving a copy in the evidence folder. I also removed her contact information from my phone. The next step was scheduled and required no more communication. 1 day before the seminar, I tested the file delivery process with Marissa. It worked as expected. The documents would be automatically sent to 4 selected reporters, each from a different publication. The message contained a simple summary. Verified internal logs confirm unauthorized use of proprietary data by 2 senior staff members. There was no mention of me or any personal detail. The goal was factual correction, not exposure for entertainment. We finalized the plan that evening. I slept normally that night. The next morning, I went to work as usual. At exactly 10 a.m., The seminar began. At 10:03, the package was sent. I received confirmation from the automated system. Within 30 minutes, the first article appeared online. It included screenshots of the original proposal with digital signature traces. More reports followed from other outlets. I didn't check social media, but my coworker mentioned that the company hosting the seminar had paused the live stream. By noon, the news had reached national coverage in the business sector. I did not make any public statements. I kept working quietly. Around 3 p.m., my lawyer called to confirm that the documentation was being reviewed by the regulatory board. The operation was complete. I shut down my computer, saved the project file I'd been working on, and went home. The day of the seminar arrived without any delays or changes. I went to work at my usual time and completed my scheduled tasks. The event was being streamed live on the company's website. I opened the stream on a muted browser tab to monitor progress. At exactly 10 a.m., the seminar began. Colin started speaking first. He discussed leadership ethics and the importance of transparency in corporate work. Lena sat beside him on the panel. The image quality was clear. Both appeared calm and confident. At 10:03, the automated file delivery went through. The data package containing the evidence was sent to the 4 selected journalists. I checked the confirmation logs. All 4 transmissions were marked successful. Within 15 minutes, the first report appeared online. It included side-by-side screenshots comparing my original document and the company's published proposal. The timestamps and file properties were clearly visible. A second outlet posted another report citing credible sources, confirming unauthorized file transfers. The seminar continued for a few more minutes before the panelists began to receive notifications on their phones. Colin stopped mid-sentence. Lena looked down, then exchanged a short whisper with the moderator. The live stream suddenly cut off. A message appeared on screen. "Technical interruption. Please stand by." It never resumed. By noon, business networks started replaying excerpts from the seminar along with the news headlines. Several journalists contacted the company's communication office for a statement. The company issued a brief message saying an internal review was underway. I didn't respond to any inquiries. My identity was not mentioned anywhere. I spent the rest of the morning working on unrelated tasks. My manager asked if I was aware of the incident. I said I had read about it online, but didn't comment further. At 1 p.m., I checked social media and saw that the company had suspended its entire leadership panel pending investigation. Multiple clients had announced temporary withdrawal of contracts. Colin's account went inactive. Lena's professional page was deleted. The same news repeated across various outlets. Marissa called to confirm the release had gone exactly as planned. She asked if I was satisfied with the outcome. I said the information had reached the right place. That was the intended result. Later that afternoon, I received a message from my lawyer. The regulatory board had acknowledged receipt of the evidence and opened a formal ethics review. He advised me to maintain silence and not engage with any external parties. I agreed. I archived all remaining files on a secure drive and deleted temporary folders. The process was complete. There was nothing more to prepare. Around 6 p.m., Lena sent a single text message from a new number. It said, "I know it was you." I didn't reply. I turned off my phone and left it in another room. That evening, I went for a walk near the river. The city looked the same as before, with office lights reflecting on the water. I didn't think about the past. I only noted that the facts were now public, and the outcome was no longer my responsibility. I went home, read a few work reports, and went to bed at the usual time. The following day, My lawyer confirmed that the company had begun restructuring its compliance department. The seminar's recording was removed from all official channels. The new client I had been assigned contacted me for a follow-up meeting. Work resumed as normal. The situation surrounding Lena and Colin continued in the media for several weeks, but I didn't follow it closely. My focus remained on my new project. The media coverage continued for about 2 weeks. Each new article repeated the same details. Colin and Lena had used data without authorization. Their company had failed to verify ownership before submission. The board issued a formal apology and removed both from their positions. A temporary management team took over. Clients resumed partial cooperation once new oversight was announced. The case stayed in the news for several days before attention shifted to other stories. I stored digital copies of all reports for record purposes. During that period, Lena sent several messages asking to meet. I didn't respond. One message included an apology, but it also suggested that the exposure had destroyed her career permanently. I read it once and archived it. Colin never reached out directly, but his lawyer sent a notice stating that he intended to pursue legal action against unknown parties responsible for the leak. My lawyer replied that no personal information had been disclosed and all evidence came from verified public sources. The matter ended there. No lawsuit was filed. My employer scheduled a brief internal meeting to discuss the incident. The management team emphasized data protection and documentation standards. They asked if I would be willing to share a general outline of my process for identifying unauthorized access. I agreed under confidentiality terms. I presented a step-by-step summary of digital tracking and timestamp verification. The presentation was recorded for training purposes. It became part of the company's compliance manual. After that, the subject was considered closed. Outside of work, my daily routine returned to normal. I moved to a new apartment near the office. It was smaller, but more convenient. I sold the old car and used public transportation instead. I disposed of the remaining items from the previous home. There was no contact with Lena after that point. I didn't check her social media or any related updates. My objective was to maintain a consistent schedule and rebuild normal habits. I started keeping a written log of tasks, expenses, and project goals. Each day followed the same structure. 3 months later, I received an official notice from the ethics board confirming closure of the case. The final report stated that the evidence was accurate and complete. It concluded that the data misuse originated within Colin's team and that both employees were responsible for unauthorized access. The report included no mention of me except as the original document creator. The conclusion effectively restored my reputation in the industry. I saved the document and forwarded a copy to my employer's HR department for record. After that, I made one final visit to my lawyer's office. We reviewed the full timeline and stored the remaining materials in long-term archive. He asked if I wanted to pursue compensation for intellectual property use. I declined. The professional correction was sufficient. He closed the file. The total duration of the entire process, from discovery to conclusion, had been 7 months. There were no further pending actions. In the month that followed, I continued working on data modeling projects. I received positive feedback from several clients. My manager mentioned a possible promotion. I accepted new responsibilities, but kept communication limited to work-related topics. I did not discuss my personal life with anyone. The experience had no visible effect on my behavior at the office. Colleagues viewed me as quiet but reliable. The situation with Lena and Colin faded into background noise. By the end of the year, I had achieved stability. The events were documented, processed, and completed. There was nothing left to resolve. I no longer reviewed the evidence folder. It remained stored on a secure drive, untouched. I kept the physical notebook with dates and notes as a reference, in case it was needed again. Beyond that, I moved forward with a consistent routine and clear boundaries between work and personal matters. When the media attention faded, I began reorganizing my life. My daily routine stayed simple: work, meals, exercise, rest. I stopped following any updates about Lena or her former company. My focus remained on new projects and maintaining a clear professional record. Marissa and I met occasionally for technical discussions. We didn't mention the case. My lawyer closed all related files and sent final invoices. I paid them and archived the receipts. My new apartment required less maintenance. I arranged the furniture in a practical layout and kept only necessary items. Weekends were mostly quiet. Sometimes I walked along the river or read online reports about data compliance developments. The topic was relevant to my field, but unrelated to my past situation. I joined a remote course on business analytics to expand my skills. It kept my schedule full and predictable. About 6 months later, I received an email from Lena's lawyer confirming completion of divorce proceedings. The process was straightforward since both parties agreed on terms. No disputes were recorded. I signed the final documents electronically. After that, there was no further communication. The event marked the end of all formal and personal connections. I noted the date in my logbook and moved to the next task. In professional terms, the experience became a reference point for me. My documentation process was later used by several colleagues to improve project verification standards. I gave one presentation on data ownership verification to a private industry group. The audience responded with questions about technical methods. No one asked about personal details, and I didn't volunteer any. The matter stayed within professional boundaries. Time passed without significant change. I adjusted to the steady pace. The folder containing all evidence remained stored on a secure drive. I didn't open it again. Occasionally, I received follow-up notices from regulatory newsletters summarizing similar cases. I read them briefly and moved on. The sequence of events had become historical information, not an active issue. When I thought about the entire process, I recognized one clear outcome. Facts are consistent even when people are not. Collecting and presenting verifiable data resolved every problem faster than emotional reaction would have. The process reinforced my preference for structure and documentation over confrontation. It confirmed that evidence has more impact than words. Looking back, I didn't view it as revenge. It was correction through procedure. Each step followed logic. Gather proof, verify, present, and conclude. There were no unnecessary discussions or emotional exchanges. The results occurred naturally once the information reached the right people. That was sufficient. I had no interest in continuing beyond that point. Now, my daily life remains consistent. I wake up early, complete my routine, and focus on measurable objectives. I no longer consider what might have happened differently. The sequence of events is documented, finalized, and stored. That is enough for me. Maybe outcomes like this don't restore what was lost, but they clarify what was real. Facts stay constant, even when trust fails. What happens afterward depends on how you act, not how you feel. If someone used your trust to get ahead, would you stay silent or set the record straight? Share what you do in the comments. Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who understands quiet justice, and subscribe for more real stories of truth, betrayal, and consequence.